Om Hare Krishna, everyone. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjanashalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utpadakamla Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Shri Raghunatam Tam Sam Sivam Sadhavatam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishvanu Sate Devi Pranmami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubheva cha Patitanam Pamnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य जय श्री अद्वैत जय श्री प्रभु नित्यानंदा जय श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा वासुदि गौर भक्त वृंदा ओम श्री कृष्ण पादाय ओम श्री नमो विष्णु कृष्ण ओम श्री
Namo
विष्णु
Namo
कृष्ण
Vishnu Padaya
पादाय
Krishna
कृष्ण
Krishnaya
कृष्णाय भूतले
Srimati Bhakti Vedanta
भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनी मुक्ति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे देवशेषा शून्यवादी पाशता देशतारिणे हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे हरि बोल
Hari Bol Hare Krishna. Wow, very nice, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying the Mangalacharan. Let's get started. So, we are reading Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, Karma Yoga. Just to remind you where we finished last time, Krishna talked about how one should work according to their nature, according to their svabhav that they have acquired from the three gunas. And doing someone else's work is not recommended. It can actually be dangerous. Bhayavaha, it can have very terrible consequences. So we discussed how it can cause unnecessary competition or envy or inferiority complex or unnecessary endeavor, so that we are making a lot of prayas and trying to imitate somebody else and not following our own skill set or our own tendencies, our own talents. And so we that drains us, that drains our resources, our emotional and mental and material resources, money, etc. And so we don't have, let's say, time also for spiritual activities. So it's better to explore your own tendencies, your own skill sets, your own proclivities, and see what Krishna has, what individual um, talents Krishna has given you, what unique talents or skill sets or proclivities, tendencies Krishna has given you, and engage those in service of Krishna rather than trying to imitate somebody else. And trying to hone those skill sets, try to explore them, then hone them, develop them, get proper training, proper education, proper qualification, and how to use those in service of Krishna. So and then we also discussed that we should how we should choose a work. I think at this point of time in our life, all of us are set in our we have all chosen our work line, so we are not very our line of work, so we are not, this is not very relevant to us, but still our work should be in mode of goodness. It should be according to scriptures. It should give us some basic necessities of life. It should maintain our body and soul together, and it should help us in some self actualization. Like, it should satisfy us on some higher levels also. And the most important thing is that we should be able to serve, we should be able to contribute to the welfare of community, we should be able to serve Krishna through that work in the best possible way. So so this is, I'm not going to talk too much about it. We talked at length in the last classes, last couple of classes, about this swabhav and how to engage our swabhav, how to explore our swabhav and then engage it properly in the service of Krishna, and not unnecessarily try to imitate other people's work, because from distance it may seem like somebody else's work is easier, more convenient, more comfortable. But actually, when you get into their work line, you'll see that actually the nitty-gritties of that work also entails a lot of discomfort or a lot of inconveniences. So we should just stay in our line of work that we have been qualified for, educated for, we have been trained for, and then engage that in such a way that it serves the maximum people in the best possible way, so we can serve Krishna in the best possible way with the proper mood of service. We talked about working in spirit of Krishna consciousness. What does that mood look like? Then Arjun asked another question and he changed the topic a little bit. So Arjun said in verse 36, he said, by what one is impelled to perform sinful acts, as if unwillingly, as if engaged by force. So why does somebody commit sinful act, or somebody commits something criminal, something improper, um, as if forcefully against his will he's doing something unworthy, something that is looked down upon by this society. So why does somebody do that even if they know that that act is wrong or that act is criminal or sinful? Why is one impelled to perform sinful acts? So in verse 37, we got that answer, and we elaborated on that also in last class, that this is a very famous verse where Krishna said that it is lust only. So lust, we discussed, is basically unwanted material desires, very excessive, very unworthy desires in this world to enjoy the world separately from Krishna. It is basically the enjoyer tendency of a jiva that is keeping a jiva in this world. This is the source of our existence. This is the reason why this world exists, because this is the reason why we are here in this world, why the world exists, because Jiva wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna. So, because of Jiva's separate desires from Krishna, independent desires, or desires to enjoy independently from Krishna, is the reason why this world was made. So, we can come here, we can enjoy separately from Krishna, and engage those lustful propensities or enjoyer tendencies. Okay, so we also saw a picture of, let me show you again, a painting where we see that the world is existing on um, the foundation of this world is the desires. You can see this picture, this famous painting. This is the spiritual world where you can see Radha Krishna, and this is the Golok Vrindavan, and this is the material world where we have to follow dharma, arth, kam, moksha, and we are trying to follow scripture. Some people are doing pious acts, some people are doing impious acts, but the world is based on this desire. So desire is what is separating us, keeping us in material world and separating us from spiritual world. So we talked about that. And another thing we talked about was how desires are the basis of our action. So we want something when this one. So when we want something, when we desire something, we perform an action to fulfill that desire, and then we get the result and or a reaction, and we get entangled in this world. So oftentimes in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna starts from result, that we should give all the results of our action in service of Krishna. We should offer all the results to Krishna. Then we have talked about offering our action to Krishna also. That our action should be that we should not have doership mentality. We should know that action, we should not take credit for action. We should know that action is also fulfilled by Krishna. It is completed by sanction of Krishna. And there are many variables, many factors that lead us to completing an action. So when we complete an action, we should not think, we should not take credit for it and become arrogant or proud, because even the action is facilitated by various aspects of material nature, various aspects of Prakriti, and they are sanctioned by Krishna. Only then Prakriti facilitates. So even the action cannot be completed by Jiva alone. There are three doers. So we talked about three doers also. Okay, so at the level of action also, we have to remember that action will be completed only if Krishna sanctions and only if material nature facilitates or supports that action. But then we go further back, that actually at the level of desire, we should start purifying ourselves. We should purify our desires. We should elevate those desires to the level of goodness at least. And we should try to engage them in service of Krishna. The desires should be looked through the lens of Krishna consciousness, we should, जैसे छलनी में छानते हैं, ऐसे desire should also be passed through the sieve of Krishna consciousness. And only the desires that are anukul to Krishna consciousness, that are anukul, that help us to serve Krishna, should be acted upon by the jiva. So only the desires that are in mode of goodness at the minimum, but at the maximum, they should be transcendental desires or spiritual desires that a jiva should try to support, should try to act upon. Okay. And we talked about how to purify those desires. One is by following prescribed way of living, regulated living. Okay. So that unnecessary desires don't come into our mind, or unnecessary lusty propensities do not attract us, do not tempt us. Okay, so follow very regulated, very disciplined lifestyle. And secondly, uh, attached to spiritual activities or attached to Krishna as much as possible to purify the desires. Dovetail the desires as much as possible in service of Krishna. And even then, there will be some separate desires, some lusty or enjoy, desires that are not very anukul for Krishna consciousness. Then slowly we should try to purify them with our intelligence. This is what we talked about in last couple classes. Now let's go into this discussion further. So Krishna said it is lust only. Kama esha krodesha rajoguna samudbhava. We talked about also how this calm or this lust, these unwanted desires, they will always frustrate us in this world, whether they get fulfilled or not fulfilled. They will always lead to greed and anger, krodh and lobh. Okay, by coming in contact with the lower modes of this world, like rajoguna. So when they come in contact with rajoguna, they lead to krodh, and this becomes the source of Maha Ashno Maha Papma. This is the all devouring greatest sinful enemy of jivas. Okay, very nam. Very means enemy of the jivas, enemy of this world. So Krishna says that this calm then becomes krodh by the contact with the lower modes of this world, and this is the all devouring sinful enemy of this world. This is what leads to sinful tendencies, so that a jiva commits sinful acts because he's being propelled by or attracted by the unwanted material desires to enjoy this world separate from Krishna. So this enjoy tendency, these materialistic unworthy desires are the source of why we commit unwanted acts, unworthy acts in this world. Okay. Now let's discuss further. So we'll start from 3.38. So this rest of the chapter is about the desires, about lust, about how to control this desire, this lust, or the senses. Okay, but very nice way in which Krishna has discussed in last 6 verses of this chapter. So let's discuss this. 3.38. Dhumena vriyate vahanir. Dhumena vriyate vahanir. Yatha darsho malena cha.
यथा
यथा
दर्शो
दर्शो
मलिन च
मलिन च
यथोल्बेनावृतो गर्भस्
यथो बेनावृतो
यथोल्बेनावृतो
गर्भस्
गर्भस्
तथा तेनेदमावृतम्
तथा
तथा
तेनेदमावृतम्.
तेनेदमावृतम्.
Can somebody read the translation? Then we'll do the Sanskrit.
Hare Krishna, I can read Mataji.
Yes.
Translation: As fire is covered by smoke, as mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. Haribol.
Beautiful. So Krishna is describing 3 degrees of lust. Okay, 3 levels of the lust. So what is he saying? So let's look at Sanskrit. Dhumena avriyate vahanir. Okay. Dhumena means smoke. Okay. जैसे धुआं बोलते हैं, smoke. So just like smoke, avran means to cover. Okay. Just like smoke covers, vahani. Vahani refers to fire. Okay. So vahan is another name of fire. Can anybody tell me why fire is called vahan? Often we say vahan dev. Agni dev is also called vahan dev or vahani. Why is, yes, Nagarjan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Um, From what I remember is that it is because whatever we offer to the Agni, that is transferred to the Lord Vishnu from there.
Hmm. Yes. So not only Lord Vishnu, that so you're talking about yajna. Agni is a vahan. Vahan means vehicle. Okay, जैसे हम बोलते हैं ना वाहन है, किस वाहन से जाओगे? Vahan means vehicle. Agni is a vehicle. It's a transport medium. Anything you put in Agni gets transported to next person who accepts it. So in yajna, when we put something into the fire, like ghee or any oblations, grains, etc., are put in Agni, mantras are offered. So many things are offered into Agni. Those things get transferred to Yajna Purush, which is Vishnu. Similarly, when we cook food, for example, that is why it is said, the cook, the person who's cooking the food is the Vahan, and he's transmitting his consciousness, his desires, his subtle propensities or subtle body into the fire in which he's cooking the food, so that whoever is accepting the food will get that type of consciousness, that type of mentality or mindset or desires or thoughts, etc. Okay, so that is why it is said that we should eat prasadam, and especially if you're not eating prasadam, you should not accept from people who are impure if they have cooked a food by using fire. Okay, so just like you can accept, let's say, nuts or fruits or something raw like that, which has not been cooked, which has not been put through fire by somebody impure. You can accept those kind of things from someone, but don't accept the food that has been passed through fire, if it is being made by, if it is being cooked by an impure person, because that consciousness will get transmitted to you, because fire is a vahan. Okay, anyways, I won't spend too much time into it, but the main thing is Agni is also called Vahan Dev, or Agni is called Vahani. Vahani is Agni, fire. So just
I
like
think that also
fire.
explains. I think we had some questions earlier. Also, just wanted to mention that about why should we cook food during programs, or why should we accept food from devotees only. So
Hmm,
this, I think, answers that too very nicely. So
yes,
it can be simple food, any program doesn't have to have a very opulent food, but if it is cooked by devotees, it's always better. Can be a simple salad, that's it, or a simple khichdi. Some one basic thing is also good. It's
hmm,
fine.
right, yes. So, yes, perfect. Thank you, Nagachan Prabhu. So this is saying dhumena, just like fire is covered by smoke. Yatha darsho, darsh is mirror. Okay, adarsh or darsh is mirror. So just like mirror is covered by mal or dust, yathol bena vrito, avrito again means covered. Ulbena is the embryo and garbh is the womb. I don't know why this is a little bit ulta, but regardless, garb is the womb which is covering the embryo. Okay, so just like womb covers the embryo, dust covers the mirror, and smoke covers the fire. Tatha tenedam avritam. Tenedam means idam means by this lust. So Krishna is continuing the concept. He's talking about lust. So tatha means similarly. Yatha aega to tatha bhi aega in Sanskrit. Okay, so in all these verses, when there is yatra, there will be tatra. When there is yada, there will be tada. When there is yatha, there will be tatha, like that. So like yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharatam, like that. Tada also comes. So tatha. So tatha means similarly, tenedam, this lust covers the jiva. So the jiva is covered by lust in a similar way, like these things cover their respective objects. Okay, fire is covered by smoke. Now, if you notice, there is a hierarchy of coverings here. Okay, there is 3 degrees or 3 levels of covering. The dhua covering the fire is very transparent. It's very thin. It's not very thick. It's not very dense. Okay, whereas the dust that covers the smoke is more of a matter. It is more dense. It's more thick. Its viscosity, or its you can say density, is more. Okay, and then the garb or the womb covering the embryo is even thicker. So it's basically going from thin covering, very thin or mild covering, to medium to very dense covering. Okay, so mild, medium, and dense, like that it's going. So 3 degrees of covering. So there are 3 degrees of lust. And Prabhupada will read the purport. Prabhupada will describe 3 types of consciousness. So if you remember a couple verses back, we talked about how we are very pure. Our consciousness is very pure, but it has become transformed. Love for Krishna or pure consciousness of a jiva has become transformed into love, has become transformed into lust. Okay, by these 3 different degrees of lust. Okay, so some people have very pure consciousness like Brahmanas or Vaishnavas or pure devotees, and then some are very jad buddhi. Their lust, their covering of lust or covering of unwanted desires is very thick. Okay, so Prabhupada is also going to describe 3 degrees of consciousness here. Like trees or plants are very jad. They almost appear inanimate. Even though they're living entities, they appear as if they cannot move. They cannot. It doesn't look like they have any symptoms of consciousness or symptoms of uh, of um, of um, being a sentient living being in them. Like they don't seem to be eating or sleeping or mating or defending. Even though they're doing all those things, those symptoms of consciousness are not very apparent in them. So trees or plants, they are very jad type of living beings. So that's the very dense covering of impurity on them. Birds, beasts, animals, they're all medium level, and then human beings have a very thin covering on their consciousness. So that's why they are more amenable. They are most amenable to self-realization. That covering can be easily removed. So that is compared to fire being covered by smoke. Their covering is very thin. So that's why in human body, one is most amenable to receive self-realization or spiritual intelligence, spiritual knowledge. Let's read the purport. Mataji, you want to continue?
Sure, Mataji. There are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. This covering is but lust under different manifestations like smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and the womb about the embryo. When lust is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of the living spark can be a little perceived. In other words, when the living entity exhibits his Krishna consciousness slightly, he may be likened to the fire covered by smoke. Although fire is necessary where there is smoke, there is no overt manifestation of fire in the early stage. This stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. The dust on the mirror refers to a cleansing process of the mirror of the mind by so many spiritual methods. The best process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. The embryo covered by the womb is an analogy illustrating a helpless position, for the child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living condition can be compared to that of the trees. The trees are also living entities, but they have been put in such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of lust that they are almost void of all consciousness. The covered mirror is compared to the birds and beasts, and the smoke covered fire is compared to the human being. In the form of a human being, the living entity may revive a little Krishna consciousness, and if he makes further development, the fire of spiritual life can be kindled in the human form of life. By careful handling of the smoke in the fire, fire can be made to blaze. Therefore, the human form of life is a chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy, lust, by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I think we discussed this. So 3 stages of consciousness or 3 different levels of consciousness. Trees being the most covered, then birds and beasts, and then humans. So humans are being likened to the smoke covering the fire. Their consciousness is like that, where sometimes fire can be seen a little bit. So sometimes some humans may display some spark of Krishna consciousness. They may have some interest, some kindling of love for Krishna, some faith may arise in them. And if we fan the spark, like our Guru Maharaj says, fan that spark, so then that smoke covering the fire can be removed, and that spark will become a blazing fire of Krishna consciousness. So this is another little bit of like different understandings of this verses are given by Prabhupada here. But the main thing is that lust, so 3 examples are given of how lust, you can say unwanted desires, cover a jiva in different degrees, in different level of thickness or density. And if it's just like smoke, which is very easy to remove, which is in human form of life, we can remove that and fan that spark to discover the fire underneath. Let's continue, and if any questions, please just jot them down. For now, we'll come back to it. Let's read. So Krishna is giving the understanding of lust. Okay. 3.39. Avritam jnanametena. Avritam jnanametena. Jnanino nityaverina.
Jnanino nityaverena
Kamarupena kaunteya.
Kamarupena Kaunteya
Dushpurena analena cha.
Dushpurena Nilina cha.
Okay, can somebody read the translation?
I can read, Mataji.
Yes.
Translation. Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire.
Let me just look at the Sanskrit very quick. So, avritam, again the same word, covered. Jnanam, or jnanam here, Prabhupada is saying pure consciousness. So, the pure consciousness is covered by this eternal enemy, Nityaverina of Jnani. So, of the living entity or of the wise people, this lust is the eternal enemy, this Nityaveri or eternal enemy. This covers the Gyan, the pure consciousness of a living entity. Who is this enemy? Kam Rupena. So, Kam, okay, in the form of lust, this enemy covers the pure consciousness of Jiva. Dushpurena refers to, Dushpurena means it is not difficult to satisfy this. So Prabhupada is translating it as never to be satisfied. Dushpurena, it cannot be, pura nahi kar sakte. Dushpurena, it cannot be satiated. Analena cha, okay? It burns like fire. Okay, so just like fire, if you put ghee, if you put something inside ghee or a fuel in the fire, it fuels the fire. It makes the fire roar even more. It makes the fire burn even stronger. So fire will not be satisfied by accepting that ghee. Rather, it will burn even more. Similarly, these are also dushpurena. This lust, if you try to satisfy, it burns like analena or like fire. It burns even stronger. It cannot be satiated. So these lusty desires should either be dovetailed in service of Krishna, or they should be restrained through regulative principles, through disciplined lifestyle. But if you try to just fulfill them, then they will burn even stronger. Like we discussed last time, they will, if they get fulfilled, they will lead to greed, because these desires are like bottomless pit. The more you keep putting them, the more they keep growing. The greed will keep growing, or they will not get fulfilled and they will lead to wrath or anger. And either way, the person will end up committing some kind of sinful act. So Krishna is answering the question of Arjun, why somebody commits sinful act. Like for example, these Duryodhan and Dhritarashtra especially knew the dharma. They knew what is good or bad, what is right or wrong, what is dharma or adharma. We took that verse also last time, where Duryodhan says that I know what is good or bad. He said, Janami dharmam na cha me pravritti, janami adharmam na cha me nivritti. I know what is dharma, but I cannot get myself to follow it. I know what is adharma, yet I cannot retire from it. So Krishna is giving the reason why these people, despite having the knowledge, not able to follow the correct path, the correct dharma, their intelligence, because their intelligence, their gyan, their pure consciousness is covered by this eternal enemy called lust, in the form of lust. And if somebody tries to fulfill it, it will not get satiated. Rather, it will burn like fire. It will burn more. And these people, this is what Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana and all they are doing. They are cultivating these unwanted desires. Instead of trying to dovetail them, trying to restrain them, trying to control them, they're just allowing this unwanted desire to rule over the kingdom, become the sole ruler of this kingdom. They want to enjoy this kingdom so badly, they want this throne, that they have flared up this fire by fueling the fire so much. And this leads people to do aggressive, sinful, unwanted, improper acts. Even they know that they're doing something wrong, something aggressive, something criminal, something sinful, yet they're not able to control themselves. So living entities, pure consciousness becomes covered by this eternal enemy and burns like fire. Yes, Mataji, please read the purport.
Ji Mataji, purport. It is said in the Manu Smriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex, and thus this material world is called Mathunya Agara, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of a living entity. Therefore, this lust is the symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually, that so called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. Hari Bol.
Very cool. So this we already discussed, that it is it is like a constant supply of fuel. Okay. So this part we know, we cannot extinguish a fire by just supplying the fuel. So try not to just keep supporting unwanted desires. Second point in purport that I want to bring to your notice is Prabhupada is talking about sex life. We touched upon it briefly last time. Often lust is confused with sex life or sensual, like sexual type of desires. But in scriptures, lust refers to all kinds of unwanted material desires, all kind of desires that keep you separate from Krishna, that are separate or that are independently enjoyed from Krishna. They are all called lust in scriptures. But of all those desires, the sexual desire is considered the strongest. It leaves the strongest impression. Impressions are called samskaras in our scriptures. They leave the strongest, the deepest. तो आप ऐसे सोच सकते हो samskara or impression is like a groove on the mind, like on a muddy road when a car goes, right? So the tires of the car will leave impression on the muddy road or on snow, let's say. But the bigger tire will leave a deeper impression, okay? Deeper impression. Similarly, all these unwanted desires leave impressions on our consciousness, on our subtle body, okay? So, but the lusty desire, the sensual desire, sexual desire is considered to have left the deepest impression, deepest samskara on our subtle body, on our consciousness, and keeps us entangled the most, keeps us entangled the longer in this material world. All desires leave samskaras, and until that, those samskaras, those grooves on the snow or on the road of our consciousness are not smoothened out, those grooves will keep us entangled in this world. So more the grooves, more the unwanted desires, more longer we will stay in this material world, the longer we'll stay entangled. But the lusty desires leave a very deep impression that continues for life after life and very difficult to fill it. That's why one of our regulative principles is to avoid any illicit relationships, any thing outside of religious sex life is not recommended at all. So just wanted to clarify why this is often mentioned in the purports and in the Vedic scriptures, why this point is most mentioned, because this is the deepest desire, most difficult desire to control, leaves the deepest impression on our consciousness or on our subtle body. But all desires that are unwanted, that are unworthy, that are completely materialistic are called lust. Okay. Then third point, very important line Prabhupada is saying, lust is the symbol of ignorance by which living entities kept within this material world. So this is avidya. Okay. This avidya often, so sometimes people say avidya leads to lust. Sometimes people say avidya or lust are the same thing. Either way, avidya means ignorance. So this ignorance of our true nature, of our true ego, leads to lust. Okay. So this ignorance leads to lust. Lust is the symbol of ignorance of a living entity. So if somebody is trying to enjoy separately from Krishna, that means they have lust. This is the symbol of ignorance. That means they are ignorant of their true position. They're ignorant that they are servant of the Lord and should not try to work separately or enjoy separately, enjoy independently from Krishna. This is the symbol of ignorance. Okay. Okay, then this is very important point in the last line. While one enjoys sense gratification, there may be some feeling of happiness, but this so-called happiness is ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. This is the problem. Let's talk about it just for a few minutes. So happiness that comes from sense gratification or from fulfilling these lusty desires, okay? So lust will lead to some happiness, okay? That's why people are engaging in this lusty desire, because it is leading to some happiness. So lust is leading to some happiness, okay? I'm sorry, my pencil is not working very well. So this happiness is, there are some drawbacks to this happiness. First of all, this happiness is very little. It's called, it's compared to like a drop in the ocean. So let's say spiritual happiness or happiness that you get from seva of the Lord is like an ocean. But the happiness that you get from sense gratification is considered like a drop in that ocean. Okay, it is considered a drop in the ocean. So it's a very minimal, very small happiness. Okay. Secondly, this happiness does not go very deep. So the depth of this happiness, can't write. So the depth of that happiness is not much either. Okay, the depth of that happiness is not much. So it does not go very deep. It does not. That is why it does not satiate the heart completely, because it does not go very deep. Okay, we are unlimited. We have unlimited consciousness. We are sentient living being. We are Satchidanand. We are infinite, right? So for something very finite, something very small like sense gratification, it's very difficult to satisfy a jiva who has this unlimited Satchidanand Roop. Okay, so material happiness is not very compatible and not very satisfying to a spiritual living entity. It does not go very deep, it does not go very far inside the living entity's heart. Okay, its depth is very shallow. Secondly, it does not last very long. So the duration of such a happiness that comes from sense gratification is very little. Okay, it does not last very long. Its duration is also very short. It's very short lasting. And even if we are able to enjoy somewhat, whatever that drop of happiness we experience, this comes at a price. Okay, we have to pay a price to by enjoying separately from Krishna. We have to pay a price. There will always be some reaction, some consequence, and basically it will lead to entanglement for that jiva. Okay, so it's very little. It does not go deep. It does not go far, and there is always a price to pay. Okay, there is always a price to pay. So those are the drawbacks of such a happiness that one gets from sense gratification or by fulfilling the material desires. Another drawback is it takes great effort. It takes a lot of strenuous effort on part of jiva to get any happiness in this material world. To enjoy from our senses takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot out of jiva. We have to exert a lot to get any happiness. So great effort to fulfill those desires. Okay, and yet they don't fully satisfy. Then this type of happiness is not very sustainable because of all these factors. Okay, they are not very sustainable. So that it's very difficult to repeat because it took a lot of effort to fulfill, right? It took a lot of effort to fulfill those desires. They did not satisfy you completely. They came with a price. They came with a consequence, with some negative reaction, right? They did not last very long. They did not go very deep inside you, so they are not very sustainable. They're not very repetitive. Okay, you don't feel like doing those again. Okay, so these and such a happiness, Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita 5.22, very important verse, that such a happiness has a beginning and an end. Okay, so remember, they are very short lasting, they have a beginning and an end. So that is why intelligent people, wise people, learned people who know their true nature, who are not in avidya, not in ignorance, they do not engage in such happiness or such lusty desires to get this short-term happiness. They do not, because they know that this has a beginning and an end. Can somebody tell me what 5.22 says? What is the verse? That such a happiness has a beginning and an end. So wise people do not engage with it. Ye tu samsparshaja bhoga. Yes, Nagarjuna Prabhu want to say.
Ye tu samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yoneya sevate adiyantavanta kaunteya buddha bhava samantita. I think it's second wrong, second line wrong.
The fourth line was also, you mixed like 4 verses.
Okay. Antavantu kaunteya is there, right? That's the beginning and the end, and the smart person don't. So buddha bhava samantita.
Okay, who
What is
knows?
it? Like,
I see Vedahi and Avni in the call. They might know if they're available to interact. Okay, let me try. Ye tu samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonya eva te na adiyantavanta kaunteya na te
Nateshuramte buddha.
So ye hi samsparsha jab hoga. So whatever happiness you derive from bhoga or from touch of senses, na adi antavanta kaunte, they have a beginning and an end. Okay, na teshu ramte buddha. So the Buddha or the intelligent people do not usme ramte nahi hai, usme they do not take delight or any pleasure in those type of activities of sense gratification because they have a beginning and an end. Okay, so I just wanted to draw your attention to this last line of Prabhupada's purport, where he's saying that this so-called feeling of happiness, there may be some feeling of happiness, but there are some drawbacks to it, and this is the ultimate enemy of such a sense enjoyer jiva. Okay, so such a jiva who is a sense enjoyer, he will fall into this trap of short-term happiness, and he will try to keep doing these activities over and over again, but it will take a lot out of him. It will keep him entangled. It will keep bringing him consequences. It will not satisfy him and bring him problems. So intelligent people do not. This is a symbol of ignorance. Let's keep going because we'll get behind. Let's go to the next verse. Okay, let's do 3.40. Indriyani mano buddhir.
Indriyani manobuddhir
Asyadhishtanamuchyate.
asyadhishtanamuchyate
एतैर्विमोह्यति एषा
etirvimohyati yesha
ज्ञानम् आवृत्य देहिनम् ज्ञानम्
jnanam
आवृत्य देहिनम्.
avrityate.
Okay, can somebody read this? So, okay, Mataji has mentioned this. Yeah, so this verse we recited. Mataji, you know this verse?
No, Mataji, when you said, do you know 5.22, I just looked it up.
Okay. You want to read this translation and purport?
Sure, yes, Mataji. Translation. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Though through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him.
Let's take the Sanskrit very quickly. So Indriyani, so okay, Krishna is further elaborating about lust or about unwanted desires. He's saying, where does this lust live in the body? Okay, like I can see, okay, I can see through my eyes, I can work through my hands, I can walk through my feet, I can smell through my nose. So where does lust manifest? Okay, where does lust live? What are the sources of lust? So Krishna is giving us three sitting places or three places where lust resides. Okay, residence of lust in our body. Indriyani, so senses, mano, mind, buddhi, intelligence. Remember, these are all. So Indriyani are the components of gross body, and mano, buddhi, intelligence, and mind are the components of subtle body. So lust is or unwanted desires are so deep that they live in both gross body and subtle body. Asya means this lust. Okay, again continuing the same concept of lust. Asya matlab this lust. Adhishtanam resides. Uchyate, it is said, or it is said that they reside in, lust resides in Indriya, Mano, and Buddhi. And through them, Eter means through them, through these three things, through the senses, mind, and intelligence, Vimohyati, it confuses or bewilders Jnanam, the real knowledge of, or covers the real knowledge of a Dehi. Remember Dehi word, okay? Dehi no asmin yatha Dehi. So Dehi means embodied soul. It covers the intelligence of the uh, embodied soul or of the jiva who has accepted a body. So jiva who is residing in a body gets their intelligence, their real knowledge, their true nature, true ego, this knowledge that I'm servant of Krishna, the real love for Krishna, the pure consciousness, that gyan gets covered by lust, which resides in these three places in the body. Okay, please continue, Mataji, purport.
Okay, yes, Mataji. No. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore Lord Krishna is giving the hints of those places so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is center of all the activities of the senses, and thus when we hear about sense objects of mind, generally becomes the reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification, and as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositories of lust. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit's soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter, and thus with mind and senses. The spiritual soul becomes addicted to enjoying material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.84.13.
Mataji, we can leave it. You don't have to. We can just
Okay.
discuss this. So, okay, so I think this is straightforward. That there are three places: mind, intelligence, and senses. And this intelligence, which gets covered by the lust, this is called lusty intelligence. Okay. So here, let's understand something. We have discussed this many times before, but just to review quickly, the hierarchy mentioned in our scriptures. So the intelligence should control, remember that intelligence should control the mind, okay? And mind should control the senses. From this verse on, this hierarchy will be described by Krishna. Krishna will describe this hierarchy in next couple of verses. So if you know this already, we will understand the next few verses better. So we know that intelligence should control the mind and mind should control the senses. Okay. So all these places lust can reside. Basically, what happens is senses become attracted to some things in the material world. They want to enjoy those things. Like eyes want to see something, tongue wants to taste something. I want to eat rasgulla or something, whatever. So the mind develops those desires to enjoy because of the senses. Okay, mind develops the desire to enjoy those things, or mind develops distaste to something. It doesn't want to enjoy it. It wants to stay away from some things also. So this attraction and this aversion develops in the mind then. And then mind convinces the intelligence to fulfill those wishes, and intelligence starts acting upon it intelligence starts making plans on how to fulfill those desires. Okay, so this is the hierarchy. Such intelligence which gets convinced by the mind is called lusty intelligence in this purpose. We often call it, let's say, material intelligence, or we call it, impure intelligence, like that. Okay, we can call it, how is this one? Yeah, impure intelligence. So such a mind which is under the control of senses is basically an uncontrolled, untamed mind. The senses which are getting attracted to the things of this world are impure senses, and we can say such a intelligence which caters to the wishes of mind and senses is a basically material intelligence. Okay, so Krishna will give us this hierarchy, and then Krishna will also tell us how to make this intelligence spiritual, or how to develop discrimination, how to develop Vivek Buddhi in this intelligence, so that it can control the mind, and it can control the mind, can control the senses. Right now, the hierarchy is going like this: senses are controlling the mind, and mind is controlling the intelligence, but it should go in this direction. So let's go back to the verse. Okay, so this is lusty intelligence. I think it will become clear as we keep reading. Let's read the next verse also. 3.41. Tasmat tvam indriyani yadau. Tasmat tvam indriyani yadau. Niyamya bharatarshava. Niyamya bharatarshava. Papamanam prajahi enam. Papamanam
Papamanam prajahi
enam. Jnana Vijnana Nashanam. Jnana Vijnana Nashanam. Okay, who can read that has not read so far?
Can I read? Can I read?
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization.
Okay, let me just show the Sanskrit quickly. So tasmat means therefore. So Krishna said that these senses are so we saw the hierarchy, right? So first thing Krishna says, Adau, in the very beginning, try to control the senses. Okay. Here two words are important. One is Adau, beginning, and the second is Niyamya, okay, by regulating. So Krishna is saying, therefore, regulate your senses, Tvam Indriyani Adau, in the very beginning, by regulative principles, by regulating them. Papamanam, Papamanam means they are great symbol of sin. Prajahi enam means curb this great symbol of sin, or this lust. Otherwise, they will destroy your gyan and vigyan. Okay, they will destroy your knowledge and self-realization. Remember, gyan means knowledge, and vigyan means application of that knowledge. Okay, so vigyan means applied knowledge, or a realized knowledge. So bookish knowledge, theoretical knowledge, you can say, is gyan. Like, I understand that I am servant of Krishna, but I may not have realized that true nature of mine. So that realization, that understanding, that application is called Vigyan. So Gyan and Vigyan gets destroyed by this great symbol of sin called lust. Okay. Therefore, in the very beginning, how can you control the lust? By controlling your senses. So here two words are important. In the very beginning, control your senses. So remember that hierarchy goes from intelligence, mind, and senses. Senses are the ones that are confusing the mind. So in the very beginning, just detach the senses, regulate them from coming in contact with sense objects too much. Okay. So don't let, in the very beginning, as soon as senses start coming in contact with unwanted things, detach them. Okay. So let's say I don't need to, let's say I don't want to drink alcohol. Then I don't need to go to the pubs and bars, or in the association of people that are drinking, because I don't want to tempt my senses. Okay. I don't want my senses to come in contact with such people or such places, or the smell of alcohol, which may sway my senses. So in the very beginning, detach the senses. by niyamya, by regulating them, by restraining them. Okay, so in the very beginning, one has to do this, regulate their senses. And we have discussed in the past that regulation can happen by do's and by don'ts. Do's means to follow certain rules, and don'ts mean to restrict your senses, like niyam and nishedh. Okay, so for example, don'ts are the four regulative principles, like I won't eat meat, or I won't engage in illicit relationship, or engage with illicit intoxicants, or gambling and stuff like that. So this is don'ts. Four regulative principles give us the don'ts. Do's are to do something. For example, I will engage in certain things like Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padsevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmavednam. I will engage in those 9 limbs of devotional service. So doing something through your senses can also help to control them, and to not do certain things through your senses will also help to regulate them. So restrict certain things and engage in certain things. Always engage in spiritual things and always restrict from material things. Always attach to spiritual things and always detach from material things. That is the basis of controlling the senses. Okay. So let's see what Prabhupada is saying. Let's read the purport. Yes, Mataji. Oh, yes, Mama, please continue.
Purport: the Lord advised Arjuna to regulate the senses from the very beginning, so that he could curb the greatest sinful enemy, lust, which destroys the urge for self-realization and specific knowledge of the self. Gyan refers to the knowledge of self as distinguished from non-self, or in the other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Vigyan refers to the specific knowledge of the spirit soul's constitutional position and his relationship to the Supreme Soul. It is explained thus in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.931.
You don't have to read this. Let's go to
the knowledge.
Let's read from here.
Lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return the normal condition. Nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So, from every stage of life, or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of Lord, and turn the lust into love of Godhead, the highest perfectional stage of human life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So first Prabhupada has given the definition of Gyan and Vigyan, so we understand that. Then Prabhupada has given this very important verse, which we actually just discussed in the last home program when we discussed Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. Chaturshloki Bhagavatam starts from verse 33. But before 33, we discussed this verse where Krishna gives the table of context or the index for Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. Krishna says that to Brahmaji that I'm going to tell you 4 things. Okay, in Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, I'm going to tell you Gyan, Vigyan, Rahasya. So Gyan, Vigyan, we know knowledge and self-realization is Vigyan or applied knowledge. Rahasya means my deepest secret, my most confidential knowledge, which is basically love of God. Okay, Rahasya means love of God. And Tad Angam. Tad Angam means how to get this Gyan, Vigyan, and Rahasya. Tad Angam. I'll tell you the process or the path, the anga, the limbs that you have to follow. Okay, so this is what these are the 4 things that are mentioned in Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. So Krishna said this to Brahmaji that in order to get Gyan and Vigyan, And rahasya, you have to follow the process. Okay. And the process is to control the senses, follow the devotional principles, and best is to follow the devotional service of the Lord. Because if you follow devotional service of the Lord, mind, intelligence, and senses, everything will align. Okay. Everything will fall into place. Devotional service of the Lord is the best method, and you can try to artificially control the senses, or you can just follow the devotional service of the Lord, which will automatically control the senses. So between do's and don'ts, the devotional service of the Lord, the do's are more important. That is why we always stress upon do's more, and don'ts are followed, but devotional service is stressed more. And when devotional service is followed, the don'ts also happen automatically. Anyways, I'm not going into, because Prabhupada gives a lot about devotional service in the purports. Sometimes becomes difficult in the initial chapters of Bhagavad Gita to align those together. But right now we're just understanding that how lust sits in mind, intelligence, and ego. We should start controlling with the senses, because senses will sway the mind and mind will sway the intelligence. So we should start controlling the senses through do's and don'ts. And both are important, do's and don'ts. Devotional service is, of course, the best. And then Krishna will give us this hierarchy in the last two verses. So let's read both of these together and we'll finish this chapter. 3.42. Indriyani parani ahur.
Indriyani parani ahur.
Indriyebhya paramam mana.
Indriyebhya param mana.
Manastu para buddhir. Manastu para buddhir. Yo buddhe paratastu sa. Yo
Buddhe paratastata.
So this is the hierarchy. If anybody asks you where does this hierarchy comes, because we keep quoting it, that intelligence controls mind and mind controls the senses. So this comes in Bhagavad Gita 3.42. Indriyani parani ahur. It is said, ahur means it is said that Indriyas are superior to the dull matter. Indriyas are better than the dull matter, working senses. But better than Indriya, Indriyebhya, better than Indriya. Param means better, is mind. Better than senses is mind. Manastu para buddhi. Better than mind is intelligence. Okay. Yo buddhe paratastu sa. But he, sa means he. He means jiva, is better than the buddhi. Okay. The soul is better than or superior to, higher to the buddhi, the intelligence. Buddhi is better than or superior to the mind, mana, and mind is better than the senses, indriya, and senses are better than the dull matter. So this is the full hierarchy given by Krishna. Can somebody read this translation? Who is available to read?
I can read, Mataji, if nobody's available. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence.
Let's read next one also and discuss it a little. Evam buddhe param buddhva. Evam buddhe
param buddhva.
Samstabhyatma namatmana. Samstabhya
Samstabhyatmanatmana.
Jahi Shatrum Mahabaho.
Jahi Shatrum Mahabaho.
Kamarupam Durasadam.
Kamarupam Durasadam.
So Krishna gave the hierarchy. So he said, so you know, Evam Buddha. So you understand. So Buddha means knowing. Buddha means knowing. So you know, by knowing this, Evam Buddhe Param, knowing that you are superior to all of these, okay? Knowing oneself to be the superior, knowing that you, the jiva, is superior. Samstabhya, steady, Atmanam, the mind, steady your mind. Atmana, by deliberate intelligence, by spiritual intelligence, okay? So deliberate intelligence means, so Krishna is saying by deliberate Prabhupada is saying deliberate intelligence. Deliberate intelligence is the spiritual intelligence or mature intelligence, okay? Not the material intelligence, not the impure intelligence, not the lusty intelligence, but the deliberate, the discriminating, the mature, the spiritual intelligence. So control, so with this spiritual intelligence, control or steady the mind, okay? Jahi Shatrum Mahabaho, conquer this enemy. Which enemy? Kama Rupam, this lust, which is Durasadam, which is very formidable. So conquer this formidable enemy in the form of lust, O Mahabaho, by steadying the mind, by cultivating this spiritual intelligence. Now that you know you are you are higher than anything, you are topmost. So Krishna, first of all, he gave the hierarchy, then he gave the understanding of the conclusion of this hierarchy is that since you are topmost, you can steady this mind, you can cultivate this spiritual intelligence and conquer this formidable enemy called lust. Okay. Mataji, can you read this also?
Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjun, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust.
And can you read the purport also?
This third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is conclusively directive to Krishna consciousness by knowing oneself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without considering impersonal voidness the ultimate end. In the material existence of life, one is certainly influenced by propensities for lust and desire for dominating the resources of material nature. Desire for overloading and for sense gratification is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. But by the strength of Krishna consciousness, one can control the material senses, the mind, and the intelligence. One may not give up work and prescribed duties all of a sudden, but by gradually developing Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in transcendental position without being influenced by the material senses and the mind, by steady intelligence directed towards one's pure identity. This is the sum total of this chapter. In the immature stage of material existence, philosophical speculations and artificial attempts to control the senses by the so-called practice of yogic postures can never help a man towards spiritual life. He must be trained in Krishna consciousness by higher intelligence. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the third chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Karma Yoga, or the discharge of one's prescribed duty in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, I really like here, somebody, Prabhupada says, turn the lust back into love for Krishna. I can't see it there again, but let's discuss this a little bit more. I'll just spend 5 minutes on this, and then we can discuss this chapter or take questions. So we understood the hierarchy. The soul is supposed to control the intelligence. Soul is highest, and we got this hierarchy from 3.42. Intelligence is supposed to control the mind, and the mind controls the senses. This is the way hierarchy should go. And senses are over the dull matter, better than the dull matter. But in our condition, the senses are impure. Okay, they have the taste for this world. They want to enjoy this world separate from Krishna. They have these unwanted desires or lust. The mind is uncontrolled or untamed. Okay, so mind gets swayed by these senses. Mind comes under the control of the senses. Okay, and our intelligence is also material intelligence. It gets swayed by it's controlled by the mind. So it starts making plans to fulfill the unwanted desires or unwanted lust. Okay. So, so let's quickly understand what to do for each of these. We have discussed this in the past, but going again, discussing this again. So Krishna said that in the beginning, one should try to control the senses. Okay. So senses, we discussed, can be controlled by following certain do's or certain don'ts. Okay. So do's means the 9 limbs of devotional service, like the process of devotional, the devotional process, basically, process of devotional service, bhakti yoga, 9 limbs of devotional service can be included in do's. Okay. Reading scriptures, associating with devotees, engaging the senses in various physical services. So engaging the senses is a good way of purifying the senses. And don't means by restraining the senses from unwanted things, like 4 regulative principles are meant to restrain. Okay. On the level of mind, we can also do something positive. The positive thing, or we can attach it to chanting of the holy names. Okay, chanting of the holy names will purify the mind. Okay, and we can detach it or withdraw it. We can um, follow a don't of gradually withdrawing the mind from unwanted thoughts, unwanted emotions, unwanted desires. So withdraw the mind. So whenever, even during chanting, if your mind starts to go towards various unwanted things, gently withdraw it from those things. Okay, gently withdraw from unwanted thoughts, or a bekar ki, useless thoughts, unwanted emotions, unwanted desires and thoughts. So remember, there are 3 functions of mind. It helps to think, so separate it from unwanted thoughts. It helps to feel, to separate it from unwanted emotions, unworthy emotions that are not useful, and separate it from the third function is willing, so separate it from unwanted desires. So in this way, withdraw the mind from those things and engage the mind by chanting. Similarly, intelligence also you can purify, you can engage, you can hone, cultivate this intelligence by associating with scriptures or with devotees, especially scriptures. Okay, by reading or hearing of scriptures. So reading, hearing of scriptures will help to cultivate intelligence, spiritual intelligence. And you can detach the intelligence from the things of this world, like for example, worldly news, worldly things like media, okay, media or books or movies that are unwanted, that will only lead to unwanted desires. So separate your intelligence from unwanted worldly things like news and media especially. Okay, so this is the way you can work on each of these things. You can cultivate a spiritual intelligence, you can tame your mind, and you can purify your senses. Okay, you can do positive and negative things on each level. Now, one more thing I just wanted to discuss very quickly. In the end, Krishna is saying, cultivate a deliberate intelligence. Okay, and this will help you to purify the mind. This will help you to steady the mind. So just like we always talk about functions of mind, intelligence also has 2 functions. Okay? Intelligence has 2 functions. One is deliberation. Sorry, deliberate intelligence has 2 functions. One is discrimination. Okay, this is called Vivek Buddhi. Discriminate between good and bad. Okay, and then the other function is called determination. Okay, determination comes from intelligence. So a determination to follow a path. So once you understand something is good or bad, then to have the determination to stick to the good path, to avoid the bad thing, that positive negative we were discussing, that comes from intelligence. So this type of intelligence, which helps you to discriminate between good and bad, and then with determination helps you to follow the good thing and avoid the bad things, is called a very mature, very um, cultivated spiritual intelligence or deliberate intelligence. Okay, so Krishna is saying, with this deliberate intelligence, not with material intelligence or lusty intelligence, but with spiritual intelligence, you can steady the mind. So slowly we have to cultivate this type of spiritual intelligence with the help of scriptures, mostly by reading and hearing of scriptures. This is the main thing that will sharpen your intelligence. So right now our intelligence is very dull. but we can sharpen it by associating with scriptures more and more. So if you have sharpened intelligence, it will control your untamed mind, and that controlled mind will then purify the impure senses. Right now, our senses are impure, our mind is untamed, and our intelligence is dull. Now we have to sharpen the intelligence, we have to tame the mind, and we have to purify the senses. We can attack on each of these levels of hierarchy, but the most important is, Krishna is saying, if you can go to the top of the hierarchy, which is cultivating a deliberate spiritual intelligence. And of course, everything is included in the process of devotional service. So devotional service, actually, that's why Prabhupada keeps mentioning about devotional service, because the 9 limbs of devotional service attack each of those sitting places of lust. Remember, these 3 are the sitting places of lust. So the 9 limbs of devotional service attack all of those. So if you can't remember all of this technical stuff, technical jargon that I'm giving you, just remember to follow the 9 limbs of devotional service, the process of sadhana bhakti, the devotional service process that will purify your intelligence, mind, and senses, everything. But to those who like to understand these nitty-gritties of Bhagavad Gita and these technical points, I'm mentioning these points as well, in addition to a sense that is given by Prabhupada in the purports. So I think that's it. And this will all help to convert our lust back to love for Krishna.
I have a question, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for the wonderful lecture. I have this thinking that when we look at something like either on the TV or sometimes we hear or some advertisement, and we get influenced like, oh, this is a good travel destination, or maybe we want to buy this thing. So all these things come under the lust, or what should we call them, or how can we cater to these things, like when it comes to our mind, because it's natural when it comes like, okay, yeah, this is a good place to go, or we want to buy something when we see some ads, or we see something which is pleasing to our eyes or senses, and we get attracted to it. Okay, yeah,
I
let's.
got your question. Yeah. So yeah. So we
Is
have
this
these
lust,
desires.
Mataji, or what?
Right. So we have these desires to buy something, to travel somewhere, to get something, to acquire something. So are these this lust or not, right? So Mataji, going back to our previous discussion, we had this discussion about work also, right? Ambition versus satisfaction. Okay. So first of all, look at your swabhav. Okay. Try to explore that nature by and see if that desire that you have will somehow help to fulfill your potential, will somehow help to fulfill the swabhav, the god-given swabhav that you have in this body. Okay. And then see if somehow that can be channeled into Krishna consciousness or not. Okay. See if they are completely okay. Remember that in work, in the context of work also, we said that it should be in mode of goodness, first of all. So if it is a desire that's completely tamasic, completely ignore it. Okay. Try to get rid of those tamasic desires. I think you are talking more about sattvic type of desires, like acquiring, you're not talking about, let's say, uh, acquiring something that will be very harmful to you or to other
No.
people, right? We are
Yeah.
talking about some sattvic type of desires, like traveling.
Yes.
Like we just came back from New York. We were traveling there. I had this desire, right, to visit. So traveling can be a sattvic type of desire. It can also be in mode of passion. It can fall in actually both. Or acquiring something can also. So at least be situated in terms of your desire in a little bit higher modes. Okay, it should not be tamasic. Between goodness and passion also, try to situate your desires of acquiring something, going someplace. Even within city, you're going someplace, right? You have a choice. You can go to let's say visit even between friends, that the friends that you visit, an activity that you do, the food that you eat, everything can be goodness, passion, or ignorance. So try to encourage, first of all, only the sattvic type of desires, a little bit passionate if that's your nature. Okay. And then see how those desires I can bring Krishna into those. Okay, how I can serve Krishna through those desires, how I can channel those in such a way that they can be dovetailed in service of Krishna, or how they can be used to nourish my potential, my inner nature, my swabhav, so that I can serve Krishna better ultimately. Okay. If they are completely harmful to your services, to your nature, they are very degrading, they should be ignored. If they are topmost, they are just like you're going to dham, then you know those are spiritual desires. Those are transcendental desires. Those are not material desires. But within material desires, we have to sieve them, sift them through the lens of Krishna consciousness. That's what I was saying. In any activity that you undertake, any friends that you have, any hobbies that you have, any things that you buy, how you spend your money, where you go to travel, all those things have to be uh, looked through this lens, that are they somehow helping me fulfill my inherent potential, my creative potential, my are they helping me in my service in some way? Is it nurturing something, nourishing something within me, or is it very harmful, very hurtful to me or to others? Then those you should disregard. Complete waste of money versus are they some kind of investment in something for future, or investment in something within me that helps me to serve Krishna better? In those ways you can make your decisions. But this is where discriminating intelligence comes. And then you take, so many of the desires will get sieved through, will get sifted through, will become unwanted and will fall through your sieve. But some will retain, even those. Then slowly you will purify yourself as you go through your natural progression of Krishna consciousness. We will get elevated more from mode of passion to mode of goodness, and then transcendental desires. So as we start adding Krishna in our life, Krishna starts expanding, like that.
Yes, Mataji. Yes, thank you.
That's my understanding. Anybody wants to add anything to that or share anything more on it? I just had some I think slides, just 2 or 3. One is this one. It is like a bottomless pit. If you try to fulfill just materialistic desires, they just keep falling through the holes. And more we fill, the more they become empty and hungrier you feel. So the only way these holes can be filled is through devotional service to Krishna, actually, by serving Krishna. This is something that Narad Muni said to Vyasadeva. He said that we should not have acquired this body, but we acquired this body because we wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna. So living entity should not have taken on a material body, but has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. It is not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself in the activities of sense gratification by which he perpetually gets material body one after another. So this desires, this tendency to enjoy is what is keeping us here. This is that verse 2.9.31, which serves as a table of index for Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. Krishna says you will be able to understand all this knowledge by following Tad Angam, the process, the devotional process. This is what I discussed, that senses you can purify by restraining and by engaging. Mind also by chanting and by gently withdrawing. And you can sharpen the intelligence by scriptures and by avoiding excessive news, media, or interaction with worldly people. So sharpen the intelligence, tame the mind, and purify the senses. And somewhere senses are compared to serpents. So don't feed the serpent, he becomes more aggressive and violent. And then this is Narad Muni talking to Vyasadeva. He said that you have talked about everything in your scripture, in your books, but you have not talked about devotional service. The best way to satisfy the lust is to perform devotional service. It is true that by practicing restraint of senses, one can get relief from the disturbances of desires and lust, but this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul. For this satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the personality of Godhead. So intelligence, we talked about two activities of intelligence is discrimination and determination. Okay, I'll stop here. So we've completed chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga, Next time we'll quickly just take blocks of this chapter, the main concepts that Krishna discussed in this, so that we can summarize it and then take a Kahoot quiz. Any questions, any realizations? Sheetal Mataji, Ravi Prabhu, Hiral Mataji, Rekha Mataji, Chetan Prabhu, anybody wants to share anything?
Hare Krishna. I
Hare
was actually
Krishna.
thinking, just when we were talking about desires and lust, that my goal for this year, it's one of my resolutions I was thinking, is to dovetail the desires more in service of Krishna. So, if we can I can keep working on it, then maybe I can progress. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Converting lust to love. Really like that. Yes, thank you, Nagarjuna Prabhu. So, okay, I'll stop the call. Thank you everyone for joining. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you
Jai.
for joining. Very, very grateful to each and every one of you. Vancha
Hare
kalpa
Krishna.
taruscha
Hare
kripa
Krishna.
sindhu
Kripa
bhaya
sindhu
vacha
vacho,
patitanam
patitanam
pavanebhyo
pavanebhyo
vaishnavebhyo
vaishnavebhyo
namo
namo
namo.
namo. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Bhakta
Hare
Tadbhakta
Krishna.
Namo.